because I would forget. So we were going to do the topic, and I know there's a whole bunch, we had quite a few questions up in the private space, so we'll go over that, and there was some in the regular space.
Okay.
But in Facebook land, which I try to keep them out of Facebook land, but in private is better. But I thought that, and if anybody's not connecting to that, let me know. But I figured we'd get into file review first and then go over it. And I just got a broad overview of it, and I will give you guys the PowerPoint. So all these things that we create, the PowerPoints are put up into the private space, not in the Facebook group, because you guys pay to be here and they don't. So that's just there to tell you to come here. And it's not like QB Community Live, right? So this is different. So this is all stuff that we are sharing with you guys that we don't typically share outwardly. And file review this is a really great thing that you're gonna be able to pull down, and you can create on your own. And I'll pull it up and we can go through it. And Sarah, you can kind of go through the scenario, because we actually do these together. Maybe you guys could buddy up on some of these, because it's really helpful when you're doing this so you don't miss anything. All right, I'm gonna try to see if I can, I know I'm not gonna pull it up right because it's gonna pull away my thing. So I guess let me just see what screen I have open.
And I think, let me look at questions and
make sure it's not my.
Okay, so Anne has some.
I'm gonna pull down this because this was somebody else's stuff. Make sure I don't have anybody else's stuff open. My massage therapist misses me, and she sent me a picture because she has a special headband that has 2 cat ears on it. And she took a picture of me one time when she was giving me a facial with my headband with my cat ears. And she sent me a picture saying, your cat ears miss you, because I haven't been able to go because mom.
Oh yeah.
So kind of funny, but it's nice that your massage therapist, she's also a really good friend, misses me. All right, we got a couple of things in the comments. Okay, so where are the previous calls located? If you go into the private space, they're right underneath, they're in meetings. So there's a topic called meetings, and they're all in there. And then if they're a topic, like we did one on Clio, I also put it in the Clio one. And if we did one on payroll, I'm trying to put them in places that make sense so that you don't have to go through as we build here. If we have 100 meetings, I don't think you want to go through that to find them. I think it makes sense to put them in the group. And then, where's the private space? Who asked that question? Oh, Ian, you're not in it? I know I invited you, but if you didn't get it, we can re-invite you, and then it sends the link out again. And it's just, it's tribe.so it's accountantslawlab.tribe.so. I apologize for can you guys hear the noise of whatever they're cutting? Okay, good. All right. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to turn it into a PowerPoint because it's not going to be one when I turn it on. So this is the problem I'm having. Sorry, I can't make it.
Okay.
Actually, present view.
Present in the.
But then now, do you see my view as my plain screen?
Yeah, we have so use slideshow at the top, or swap.
Okay, so I'm going to do swap. All right, hold on. Now, do you see it the way you want to see it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So client file review, obviously. All right, so I have my screen swapped. That helps.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So when you get a file, first thing you're going to do is you're going to dive in, and no matter what file they give you access to. So we have had PC law files where we've had to arrange to get a login because it's desktop. We've had Juris, same deal, it's desktop, and we have to get in. Those of you older folks that are in the age of me, you probably recognize some of these other platforms, these Thomson Reuters ones, because they look like OneWrite Plus or Peachtree did back in the day of desktop.
Yeah.
So you younger ones, you'll go in and go, what the heck is this? It looks like Pac-Man. Yes, same kind of deal. Right? It's like, what is this boring flat, or Tetris, but it looks bad. So, but you asked, so you're going to open the file. And in this case, this company is a QB desktop file. So we actually get it, open it up, and we dig in.
Well,
how many business entities?
And some of these things. Can we ask Linda, how many of you have a formal process for review? Do many of you actually have like a
formal thing, or do you just wing it?
A checklist or wait? I mean, it doesn't matter. There's no wrong answer here.
For years, I had none. So if that makes anybody feel better, I had none. I just went in and did it. And then I would forget something, like forget to look at undeposited funds, and then get hired, put a price on it, get hired, and then find the ginormous mess that I now have to eat my shirt because I didn't seize that. So This is a nice little formal list. You could take this and make it into a checklist if you wanted to. Google form or something, and then check it off. And you could put this in a format that you could display this to the client with maybe your recommendations. So if you charge for file review, which you all should, something that I never did, I'll be honest there too. I never charged for file review for years. I always just did it. And you should charge. Is everybody here charged for file review, or am I the only one that was dumb enough?
If you guys do or
you want to put it in the chat.
You can put it in the chat, or if you want to speak out. I mean, if you do, great. If you don't, it's an opportunity a new way to revenue because if you think about it, you're diagnosing and spending time, and it helps you give a more accurate quote or price value for yourself. That works.
Tippy.
I'm just gonna mute. I'm gonna mute, or I can't do it.
So how much do you guys charge for a file review? I mean, we kind of different charges depending on the size of the firm. So bigger firm, we can charge more. We charge, well, let's see what anybody wants to see what they charge. It's okay. I mean, whatever you charge. You're talking to somebody who didn't charge for a very long time. So 400.
Yeah, that's a pretty good, I guess too, if you kind of value, don't you love how business owners like, oh, don't worry, it's just a couple accounts and just like one payroll, and then you find out it's this massive weirdo payroll system way over there. And then you've got the connected, and you've got a lot of manual entries you have to do, or the list could go on. And I love how they downplay the whole thing.
Well, the funny thing is too with this is that if you tell the client in the discovery call that you charge a file review and they balk at it, now you already know they're price sensitive, and you don't have to, but you're done, right? Because otherwise you'd be wasting your time.
Bless you, time.
Right? You'd be wasting your time. So absolutely you want to charge. So Sarah and I charge between sometimes we're nice and we'll say $475. That's if it's really teeny tiny, like a sole proprietor. And sometimes we like $575. $695. We keep testing the waters to see how high we can hit that threshold when we start to get.
It's also like the value of content that comes out of it, because if you walk away, we are organizing a map for you of where your trouble problems are. There's value in that. So it's not so much just because you can. It's more of like, well, I'm going to take the time to diagnose you. I need to understand. And there's no hiding anything. So if there's a hidden scope creep in there somewhere,
usually
we're going to look for it. But yeah, so anyways, that's kind of the general sense of it too, is it helps you kind of provide your map for yourself. And if the client walks away, they walk away, but you've gifted them with an idea of where you find their trouble problems.
And we've had that happen, right? I when I was in council, we used to talk about one of the people in there, Michael Lee, great guy, smart business guy. He runs Reconcile. I don't know if anybody here knows him, but he's a real smart guy, big firm, like big. He buys bookkeeping companies. He's that big. And he said to one of the other members who was talking about getting all the clients, like I'm great. I get every single client. You don't want to win every client, because if you are, you're probably not pricing right, right? If you get every job that walks through the door, every lead you turn, it should be like 50%. You should be looking at a 50% range, because then you'll know if you're getting them all and you're sitting there going, oh, she just said that and I'm getting them all. Start to put the prices up, especially if you're busy too. I mean, if you're at max capacity, crank the price up and then you might get it. So that's another, probably really good tip. So we'll dive into a file.
Okay.
And then look at the number of business entities. We'll ask the client actually in the discovery, how many businesses do you have? Because a lot of firms, and we've run into this, they've got one partnership, multiple partners, and then they've got other little companies that they are S corps, right? So this is the case of what we're finding here with this one. What is your primary, who's the primary business owner? We try to find the partner that's the lead partner as well. Usually there's one that got the job of working with us. If there are any investors or there's structure to it. In this case, principal partners are John Phillips and Frederick Jones. They had 3 entities because they're partnership. And then they have 2 other companies that they pay out in distributions. And then those distributions they use a payroll for. So that's that. move on to the next slide. So then the next thing we dive into is, this is all part of the call, the phone call with the client. What kind of software do you have? And they've now given it to us. What's their current accounting platform? Are they using a spreadsheet? Are they using desktop? Are they using Cosmolex or Panther, or, not Panther, because that's not one, but any product that you can think of, because there's so many out there, and some of them are standalone products that are just accounting and law. Or are they using like desktop, and then they're just doing everything manually? So another question we would ask, what's their legal software? What are their merchant providers? There's a lot of those we're finding out as we go through now. We're finding there's quite a few different options. Who's their payroll provider? Who's the current payroll provider? And then there's some potential answers there. Sarah, feel free to come.
Yeah, no, I'm these are good, like just structure. Yes. I think of it as foundation. I like to, what do they call that, grouping? I like to group certain things. So I want my foundation, I want your base, I want to build up. And then I'm going to get into, which I have a feeling, we're going to get into these other types of questions, because then it's process. If you have one, if you don't, do you understand where things are sitting? Do you know who's putting them in? Half the time, I just had this conversation the other night. I was like, so I just learned that this admin that I've been working with for over a year puts things in 3 different places, and they're all inconsistent, and they're all advanced client costs. And I'm like, wow. Just get me in the right place and I'll take care of it. And she doesn't have to do XYZ. So if they can share that with you, if you need to go back while you're in a file review and ask more questions, which we have done, it's okay to do too. But yeah, I kind of build. So what's your foundation down here? And then what are the other parts operationally that are going on? And that's where we get into this trust matter information. How do you handle trust? I kid you not, somebody told Linda and I once, I just kind of like, if they overpay, I just sort of put it over there. Did you put the name on it? Oh, we lost somebody in the mix.
Yeah.
So anyways, so that's an example. The time slips, if they've done a data migration and they've done it poorly, and then you find out that there's an actual another program behind it and they didn't take everything out of it. That's happened to us. What connects, what doesn't connect, integrations. So compartmentalize it a little bit for yourself, or group it however you want that works for you. And then it helps you build the workflow to ask the questions or to build a process for yourself. So these are really important pieces and details that you can build upon, and just examples of things. I think the next one.
So this is just the client list. How is your client list structured? Is it all in one pile? Is it connected? Like Sarah said, and in this case, they had 57 matters listed in time slips, and time slips was not connected to QuickBooks, and they were in QuickBooks Desktop. And same thing. Now we're going into the expenses. How are they being tracked? How are they approved? Yeah, they approved. Yeah. Are they? As you can see here, no. They're just dumping into, maybe pulling in the bank feed and desktop and just dumping in cash basis. They don't have any advanced client costs. And then you want to find out why. Are they, is there a reason behind that? Where are they booking the expenses? And we've seen it where they've actually booked it into them as expenses, and then they'll make an account called reimbursed. Or they'll dump it into a client account. They'll dump it in just an expense account called reimburse and have it going back and forth. So these are just some of the questions that you would find as you're going through this scope. And of course,
well, the cash basis one, I will tell you guys, I'm completely shocked. This one attorney, hands down, no cash. Everything's reported.
Oh my God, everything.
And the CPA lands the big old bomb on us, and we're like, what? You report on accrual, and he does this funky system, and we were just like, stop. What we worked to cash. We did not work to accrue.
Yes. And the funny thing was her face, because when the CPA said that, because she had actually asked a few weeks before when we gave her a budget, she's like, Linda, I need my budget in cash basis. And I'm like, what? You're going to base when people pay you? How do you base that? I mean, you're invoicing. And if you're invoicing, hello, so yeah, we found that out. It was kind of funny with her face. I wish I had hit screenshot with her face when the CPA was like, she uses
very confused moment for her, and clarity for us, thank God.
And then class tracking in this case, because there's 2 partners, you want to class track each partner.
if you want to. I mean, some partners
It's up to
don't,
them.
some like practice areas. You notice somehow like practice area in their chart of accounts, or some want it. I call it the accordion. I like, hey guys, what do you need this for? Because the
Mhm.
tax return is like simplified, right? But my accordion, my class tracking in QuickBooks, or my, in other platforms, I'm a Xero user too. I can track it a little differently. So it just depends on the system and what's of value to them. I hate pressing upon a value that they don't need, that they're really not going to pay attention to. So I don't try. I'm just more inquisitive and want to, you don't want to shake up too much sometimes in the beginning. You sort of want to honor their space and time and build with them. And then I'll use my example last night. I was finding out that the firm was going to evolve, and I was like, oh my gosh, you have not tapped all my resources. And he's like, wait, you do X, Y, and Z? And I was like, we haven't even gotten there. We've done like 4 years of cleanup. So here we are. So you can build upon your systems with them and grow with them. But a lot of times you can't get it all, so don't feel bad. I just never feel bad about re-asking questions. I feel like they're more engaged and they're like, wow, no one's ever asked me that. And Linda
Yeah,
and I find that
we hear that a lot.
that trust happens much more deeply sooner for us.
Mhm.
And we present. We do not send a file review and just send it. We actually make you schedule time with us, and we present our findings, so that if there are questions asked or methodologies behind why we did certain things that way in the firm, we will discuss that a little bit deeper. So it's, you're giving value of a map, whether they go with you or not, but you're giving value of you as a resource. And they all come back at some point in a weird way. So
So, and absolutely, when you present, it makes a difference. So now they feel like they're getting something for their money. Because
mhm.
sometimes they think that, what am I going to get? And you want to make sure that when you, and this is just a guide, but you want to make some kind of a presentation, whether it's a table format or something, even if it's some elegant looking letter that just kind of presents it. If you want a good example, go to Fathom if you have QuickBooks Advanced, which we're all going to be getting that inside our, well, we won't be getting Fathom though. I say, but if you ever have a chance to look at Fathom, look at how they build out their reporting. So it looks like this big overview. Reach does it too. You can see, if you get a sample of Reach reporting, you can see they did this beautiful presentation, and you want to be able to give them something that looks super professional, something with your logo on it, that you're presenting it, your company is presenting it to them. So this is showing them that you are a class act business and you are the real deal, and not the typical person who just gives a number over the phone, that you've taken the time to go through all these details. Let's go. So budget's also one that's
so
important.
I guess the question is if you guys aren't doing this now, that's okay too, but have any of you tempted this, or are you doing this in some way, or is this giving you a new option to think about? Like, I'm just curious how people are feeling about this. I guess it's our way of doing it. We kind of co-created our way of doing it, but feel free to unmute.
Yeah, feel free to jump in.
Well, I think that it's fantastic, because when you're someone who's either learning or growing or learning a new way, a guide would be very beneficial. And as I watch, I'm going, wow, I missed it. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no. Yeah.
So recurring transactions obviously is something you want to present, because if they're not familiar with recurring or memorized as in desktop, if they weren't using that, they're going to be kind of blown away when you show them that. Like, you can pull them up on a demo file and say, this is a way your staff can save time. And I just talked to an attorney this morning, and it was like, he's like, I can do this. And he couldn't believe that you could just like use a recurring transaction for fixed fee stuff that he's doing. And he was shocked by that. He didn't realize that that was a thing. So it's important. It's a time saver, because I'm not doing that part of it. I'm not doing the invoicing. His staff is. And, and then we got into custom fields and how we could do that. Now they're like all excited. I could see their brains were spinning on what they could do for custom fields to be able to pull the data down that they're looking for. And maybe not right now, they're doing it manual. They're pushing things out to an Excel, and they're cutting and pasting and making a report, where now they're going to be able to do it. And, she was doing something for open receivables and what had been billed in time and all that. And I said, we can work through something like that, and set it up down the road. Attachments. this is another topic, don't you think, Sarah, that you sit there and you talk to them and you're like, do you have attachments? We couldn't find any attachments in your file, especially if they're coming from desktop. It's tedious, it's clunky. So they usually don't. And they're like, no, I've got the paper here. And when we tell them, do you know that we can use Receipt Bank, Dext, and pull things in and attach it to the transaction so it's at your fingertips if you need it? And a lot of people don't, I can't believe it, because I don't know how many years I've been using like HubDoc, how many years this has been around, that this is a thing, that they don't even know the software exists. You know, you look like this giant hero, right? Because you're telling them about technology. You're not just here as the accountant or bookkeeper. You're like this super person that's technology savvy, and you're saving the client's time if they're doing that part of the work. So, and it's usually not a hard sell, is it, Sarah, to have them?
No, and it's a learning process, of course. So it's how you talk about it. It's how you add the value to it, why it's important, if you can find a concrete example of value to them and put it in their kind of realm, I notice that they open up a little bit. They're like, oh, wait, okay, so you just told me I could do X, Y, and Z. Like, for an example, I work with a guy that's always out in his truck. He's one of the plumbing areas of my former field of like things. I just held on to him. I love him. Anyways, his bank does not give me deposits. I can just look. It says like, hey, you have 3 checks in here, but that's about as good as I'm going to get. And I can get this guy to give me deposits and checks, and they may not work as they're not as pretty, but they'll come in, right? And he gives them to me. But at least I have consistency in the information. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to create a little space in Receipt Bank and make it so that all deposits that come in, I label it as such, and I can always find them. Oh my God, it works to the best. And it's honestly been a great thing for us. And now he can shred them. He doesn't hold, like, he finally just loaded onto my mom. He just gave her a huge stack and said, here, can you just scan these in case they're missing? So she's like, okay, I'll do that. But at least I have a system and I have a backup, and I can always go back, because we did have a client, a rather big contractor, come back to us and say, hey, I don't think we've ever, 2 years later, we ever settled on this. Where are my payments? Asking us for the burden of proof. So you can create systems within the system to work for you and help them. And we presented this to a client this week, and she was just ecstatic.
Like, so happy.
She could get rid of banker boxes filled of stuff because she has held on to these documents of copies because they have to. And we have digital form of them as long as we're consistent, and we came up with a backup system to it. So
Sarah?
Yeah.
When you take these deposits in from Receipt Bank, are they just, how is the client noting what matter or anything? Are they just putting in where it says other or customer or?
Well, I always encourage, it's such a great question. I basically beg and encourage you to write your notes, either like if you're going to take a picture of just the check, put a little sticky underneath or put a paper and write your notes about it, because I can't get my contractor guy, and sometimes I can't get the attorneys to write the notes in the app. So I'm just like basically, if you're going to go out and have a meal, I'll just use a receipt for that. All I want, there's 3 basic things. I want you to put the like what the purpose was and the name of who you're with. And if I don't see it on my receipts, I'm messaging you, because that's what you can do in Dext. You can message and you can tell them, hey, where is it? And they're now a little bit nervous about like not having that. They'll write me and say, I forgot to put a note on this. And it's just me asking. I set my rules up. And then if I'm like, hey, 90% of the stuff I've received this last month is sitting in this box or this category because of X, Y, Z. Oh, shoot. Okay, hold on a minute. And they get better. But deposits, because I don't really push them in, but I want a historical piece. So I have trained him. So what I did with him, because he's an outside worker, right? He's not an admin of any kind. So the day that you make the deposit is the day that you take the picture. And I want to make sure that I see that. And I need notes if there's no reference for the invoice. So I'll get batches where he'll go really well. And I've like literally rewarded him. I have to reward him for this. And then he'll go through and go a bad spurt. And then I'm like, no beer for you. Sorry. No reward or gift of a beer. So like we go through, but I make it a game because I'm asking him to be engaged and they absolutely love it. It's such a weird thing. I try to be really I'm like, hey guys, I'm in the same boat. I'm like you. I have the same requirements to the IRS. I have to know where to put things. So I kind of try to humanize it in a good way, but if I have an admin,
we have in our contract, we have a paragraph from the IRS that says what the requirement is to have these attachments in your data.
Little secret about me, as one of my clients has an IRS worker as a spouse. So
it's a good paragraph. You know,
I think a paragraph I wrote.
I think a lot of people a lot of clients don't even think about this, that they need it until they've had an audit. Then it's an eye-opening thing when they had an audit and if they don't have the documentation. I mean, once you're in an audit, I don't know if anybody here has been in an audit, but when you've been in an audit with a client and you have to get the documents, they don't give you a lot of time to go get the documents. So you should have them in a good place. They shouldn't be in a big pile in a box somewhere because they can go back and audit prior years and you want to have it. And if it's in the transactions, that's wonderful. And then I download the data and I download that 1 year in Excel and I give it to them. Here's your data to go through. I don't give them the QBO file. But
I had a client not a client, but a potential client this week tell me that her tax preparer / current bookkeeper told her that they were overkill in keeping all of their receipts attached to their reconciliations because the odds are they would never need it.
Well, I hope the odds are in your favor. What if you are that one, right? What if you're that one?
Exactly. I mean, she's already doing it and they're discouraging her from, now she could be doing it in a much more efficient manner, just like you guys have been talking about, but don't stop doing it. Just
no, I'm surprised a tax preparer would even say that.
Isn't that crazy? So
yeah, it is very crazy. Okay, so let's see. We'll go on here and then account number.
Well, I guess, does anyone have any questions though? Like,
yeah.
I love the input. We love engaging. So please, if you feel brave enough and want to offer anything.
So it's kind of a process question on that point. If you're using Dext and Bill.com, where is your
we just
where is your input point for the documentation, the support?
Dext.
So does Dext connect into Bill.com?
Your intermediary is QuickBooks, right? Or whatever software you have in the middle.
QuickBooks, yeah.
So so that would be, but the ease of use, the level, the learning, the way it learns, the whole broader piece of way Dext operates is so much easier to somebody using it than it is to, have people, you have to do a little extra work sometimes in Bill.com. So we find that start with Dext, let it read everything, codify it, get teach it what you want, and it just does its little merry little dance, right? And it's available for you in Bill.com to choose what to pay, when to pay, and how to do it.
So I'm sorry to be simple, but you put it in Dext, it integrates into QBO, and then it goes from QBO into Bill.com?
Because think of Bill.com like a layer. It's just reading what's available to pay. Bill.com just says, hey, QuickBooks says all of these are available to pay. Then you've got your credentials and all the extra good things that are in Bill.com that people like, which is the approver thing, right? It's just the part that, sure, Bill.com does the same thing, but what we found when we were doing a training session is a lot of extra steps.
Yeah.
And the person felt a little bit jumbled up. And it was like, wait, how does this work? Well, okay, let's simplify it. The moment we showed, this woman's been doing it for a long time. The moment we showed her Dext, the light bulb went on and she was like, oh my gosh, you mean it pre-fills all this stuff for me and I just have to put in a couple things? It was magic to her.
If you guys want to see, I hate to do this to you again, Sarah, but if you want to see a demo of like how it works, and we actually created a PowerPoint to show, not a PowerPoint, but what do you call it, Sarah? Lucid chart of the flow. So you could see it, because I think that helped her visually to see, here's QuickBooks, here's Dext, here's, bill.com, and this is how, and this is your firm and how it's filtering who does what. I think that helps people, anytime you can do a flow chart helps, right? So it's actually, it would be fun. So if anybody wants to see it, Dext is expensive. I use, oh, good. Hey, we got hand sound.
I would love to see it.
Okay.
And we do have a really good rep with bill.com now. And I never had a good one before. And she's very good. She's very responsive.
She's very nice. Yeah. And then Dext, I can definitely.
I was a HubDoc girl for a very, very long time. If you look at any of my posts, HubDoc. But now that it married to Xero, I feel like I'm left in the dark with it. And after seeing Dext in action and I love the texting thing because a lot of my clients text, and to be able to communicate with them, and then to be able to have it's just more robust. It's built for that. And it's got so many more things coming, which we might have bill pay there too. So,
so can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you have your receipt bank, you scan your receipts and all that kind of stuff into receipt bank or Dext, then you push it forward into QuickBooks Online, and bill.com actually reads QuickBooks Online.
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's
You
the
got it.
connection.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that,
Yeah.
is
I know
that
it is
new? Because I didn't think that QuickBooks had a two-way sync between bill.com.
no, it's one-way sync.
But it's going from QuickBooks.
Dext to QuickBooks to, it's reading what's in the bills, right?
Bill.com has always been able to read what's in your desktop or your QuickBooks Online file.
Oh,
That's the connection there. They
Yeah.
should never have been separate integrations, right? Like those are always, I call it the skin, the bill pay in front of it, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
That's the point.
Because you can eliminate Dext though, and just put things into bill.com and just use bill.com as a standalone. And the lady that we have for our rep, she figures out ways around, because it was like, the pricing was insane when the client went to her. And then she managed to do some kind of partner thing with me, and she got it down to like $49 a month. And then I forgot what the money is per check, per
Well,
transaction.
that's on bill.com, but
I mean, the bill.com side, yeah.
the bill.com thing, as simple as it is to use there, it's not a learning software.
It's
so
not,
it takes
yes.
extra work to codify things in there.
I was thinking that bill.com was only one way from bill.com into QBO.
No.
And that if you populated something in QBO, it did not, other than vendor names and address changes, it would not go into bill.com. So it's been a couple of years since I actively used bill.com, so I may have just forgotten that. But that explains, now I get it completely.
Yeah.
So bill.com too, for Canadians, it would be bill pay, I think it is.
Oh,
So
is
if
it bill
there's-
pay?
Yeah,
Okay.
so if there's any Canadians, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the chart of accounts is definitely where we would go. Getting back to this chart of accounts, we look at it, that 99.999% is a disaster. So we get in there and take a look at it and, tell them that this is one of the things we need to look at, because it's kind of one of the first stopping points if you get the job. And then we go in through and see how many chart of accounts there are here. We look at the chart of accounts on the balance sheet to see how many bank accounts. That's going to make a difference in your pricing. And how many IOLTA accounts, how many payroll accounts, credit cards, owner advance, probably could put PPP loan on here too, or loans. And then we take a look at the reconciliations. I want to make sure we leave time. Sounds like I'm blowing through this, but you will get this. I want to get to the other questions because you guys had some questions too at the end, and I want to leave space for that. Reconciliations and then answers. Obviously, you're going to look at it. Are they reconciled? And you all know that there's a spot on in the accountant's briefcase there that says report options, and in there you get a bird's eye view. You could even cut and paste that to say none of your accounts were reconciled. You want to look at it. If it's got a lot of uncategorized expenses, you want to call that out. That's just somebody using the bank feed, and then QuickBooks is telling them it goes in uncategorized, and they're going, okay, QuickBooks, you're right. Your Amex card wasn't reconciled or whatever. And then of course, this lovely account that if you happen to forget, which I have in the past, where I get in there and it's like, oh my God, I never looked here. And it's there, and it's probably duplicate income because they booked it in from the bank feed, created an invoice, created a payment, and it's just never been booked into the bank. So it's just sitting there. And, I've seen it where past years have had it. And I'm like, where was the tax person? They didn't see that. That's an account they don't ever really look at. It isn't a factor in what they do, the tax professional, but it is a thing. And then sometimes you'll find a creative accountant will give an adjusting entry and book it out to the bank account, but it'll never happen because I'll book the entire balance. I've seen that too. It's like the person will go, I don't know what this journal entry is for, and it'll actually clear the undeposited funds to bank, but it never happened that way. So you have to fix that. And that's a whole nother show, a whole other meeting, fixing that. Are there any hanging transactions? So you look in the reconciliation. So don't forget to go into the reconciliations. This is another thing I've forgotten to do. Go into, even if it shows they're reconciled, go in there and see, is there stuff been there for 2015 never clearing the bank? That's more things you have to address. And we see that all the time with client files. And of course, you're going to look at their accounts receivable. This is always going to be a major talking point when working with attorneys. How many things are over 90 days? A lot. So this is your opportunity for advisory for them, because you want to be able to talk to them about how is your workflow here? Who does it? Who's in charge of this part of the business? Which person? Is it the attorney themselves? Is it the admin? And where is it breaking down that you've got this major amount of money in undeposit in 90-day, over 90-day category? And you can help them with that because there's workflows built into Advanced that you can automate some of that. And then you can help them with a process that might work. You might find if you talk to the staff that 3 people are doing pieces of the same thing, and you might be able to improve the workflow just by looking at who's doing what. Maybe there's overlap. It's always good to do that. And then is there any large balance? In this case, it was a large balance of open AR and large receivable that was adjusted off. Accounts payable, same thing. This person was cash basis and just using bank fees and checks and expenses and not using bills. So that was a thing. And then we get into the P&L. Are there any P&L differences in the income area? You know, are there any negative income or negative expenses? Those usually stick out like a sore thumb on the balance sheet. Profit and loss. You know, in this case, the file was basically a disaster, very messy. And of course, the balance sheet was messy too. You know, and balance sheet items, you want to look at them, make sure they belong there. Same thing goes for the profit and loss. I've seen people book in loan expense and it's sitting down the profit and loss. They just had a loan and they paid it off and it got booked as a loan expense, not a liability. So you want to make sure that that's not happening in the file. Of course, payroll, you want to dive into payroll and find out what are they using for payroll. I had it today. The guy's like, I use IOP, but wasn't connected. He said, oh, I said, it's not in my books at all. Payroll's not in my books at all. Really? But does your tax professional get it? Because your payroll in a law firm tends to be one of your bigger expenses. And he's like, oh, I don't know what he does with it. Well, wouldn't it be helpful for you to look at it in one place, right? One place. So yeah. And it's not connected. And he was amazed. I love
your stories.
He was amazed. I was like, let's go in and connect it. And he's like, wow. He was like blown away that it could connect. But this is what you deal with when you work with attorneys and law firms, because they live in an archaic space a lot of times. They print the crap out of everything. They love paper, and they just don't even know a lot about technology. So you come in and you're like this amazing person that just knows all this stuff. So most clients, it's been our experience, love a spreadsheet. Most have messy files that maybe require a complete rebuild. If you're looking at a ginormous mess, sometimes when it's a ginormous mess, you might want to go back and just start over. And that will mean back building the IOLTA, maybe back building only the open, but in some cases you're back building the whole thing.
I'm writing topics down because.
Oh, good, do that. Back building advanced client costs, if they have them, if they've never even thought about them, how to do that. You'd want to do that as well.
So we said, Morgan, we were saying just use this as a guide to make either a spreadsheet or something like this for yourself. I think that you really have to tailor it to also a little bit of your personality. So when I was mentioning before, building the foundation compartment, groupings or stacking things like, okay, I want to know software. What does that all mean? What does this all mean? And group it all that way, and then kind of your flow, your process, because it's a bit of your personality that goes into that. And I always love that this is who I am. I'm kind of a rare bird in this, space, and people love that. They connect more in a great way with that.
And I can actually take down like a Fathom report so you could see an idea. And this will be put with the meeting. So you can download it, copy it. You can copy it and use it as a guide. And then maybe make another column for what your recommendations are. So that way, when you're sitting there with the client, you can go through it.
Julie had a good point, Linda, which we've been touching on this with a client of ours. It's been a sticky moment for us lately, on a cash basis, expenses or checks. And Linda, you say what you always say.
What was the question?
It's if your cash basis and a client uses expenses or checks but not bill payments, what's your thing that you tell people?
Well, most firms, and I have to say that people, I mean, I love cash basis. I don't want to pay taxes on money I haven't, gotten into my checkbook. That's how I am. But I live in a hybrid world, right? I live in a world, I want to see what I'm doing. If I'm going to analyze my books, I want to see it in accrual basis because that's real life. And then at tax time, here you go, tax pro, here's my cash basis books. This is what I've received. Is that what you meant, Sarah?
Yeah, she's in an accrual. She always tells me, I live in the accrual world.
I do. It's a cruel world
together, and it's a cruel world. But let's be real about some things.
And the world is a cruel, right? Life is a cruel.
Yeah, but the thing that we also, depending on the software, most softwares become challenging to work with. When you have something in as an expense or a check, it's less flexible. So we try to, in the nicest way possible, explain why a bill is more flexible to use. And that seems to gravitate to them. They understand that. Like, oh, okay, so they understand that it's an extra step. But if there's a problem with it, they get that thing. And I don't know if you've experienced this, Julie, but sometimes I'll well, that's just when I paid it. Okay, well, you had 5 bills behind it to get to that number. Mm-hmm. Are you trusting the vendor with that or the subcontractor with that? That's a lot of value on somebody else to give them that doesn't work in your firm. Or you screw up and how'd you double pay? How do you even know? Because I just found 2 checks for the same thing. And vice versa, the opposite side. Wells Fargo has been notorious, unfortunately, for cashing checks twice in a 6-month period for the same thing. And I have a system for my my consignment gal, and so the bank owed her money back to the tune of $1,200 at one point because they had cashed so many duplicate checks for the same consignment, and because we live by a bill pay, and that's how we figured it out. We were very specific, and I found that everything worked out. And so anyways, I don't know if that helps you, but it's definitely, I feel like you have to craft a selling point in that one, sadly, because people are not as gravitating to it because they see it as extra work, and it's not going to flip like that either. People are going to fight you a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, with the particular client I'm thinking of, I'm not sure if there is value in doing the bill pay. I'm not sure what I would get back from that. I'm actually the one entering the transactions.
Okay. So you're the
from the bank feed.
Yeah. Some don't have value, right? And some do. But if there is a moment or you're finding more red flags, I guess, or questions that pull you one way, then maybe that's a natural step to be like, hey, I'm starting to question the process. Let's reevaluate the process. It might seem rudimentary to you, but really in the end, I've got to get to the bottom of it. So yeah, hopefully that helps. And
let me just share my screen to show you. I don't know if everybody's in the Facebook group or not. I'm going to share this is the Facebook group. It's the Accountants Law Lab. Amanda Wiley had a question, but she's not here. So I'll have to jump in and get that one. I think Jana had one about Bill.com, Cleo. Cleo. Yeah. Do you want to answer that? Or Jana's here, right? So she can.
She is. Yeah.
I love that picture.
I think my question was essentially answered through the earlier conversation.
Yeah.
Dive more into Cleo separately. So
yeah.
Thank you.
And then
I know that Anne had a question about the breakdown of the settlement sheet that I was giving advice on.
Yeah, I have to go look because it was 1 week. And I apologize. It was 1 week. That's why I have the lovely Rosanna remind me.
Yeah, I was on at the beginning. Remember, I had to run. Like I only could be on.
Oh no, that one I think is taped.
Okay, because I can't find it in there. I went through all the topics because I was like, I'll just look at that later. And I went to go look at it. I was like, I can't find it. And it's gone. I was like, I forget what we talked about.
Oh, do you remember which one? I mean, what was it about? Do you remember what the topic of the week was at all?
It was the week after the Cleo meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, the week after the Cleo meeting, because so this is where the meetings are, and it's a little slow this morning.
I think it was the 24th.
It's not in, is it in date order? It doesn't look like it. I don't know why it's not in date order, but
Was number 3 or number 2?
one I didn't get. So
Number 3 or number 2 it was. That's what I
Okay.
think.
let me see. 3 was the one I didn't get. I
Yeah.
think.
Tatiana,
number
I have to
3.
tell you, your color scheme right now is just so pleasant. Like you've got this like blue hue thing going on. Every time I'm like, okay, this just looks really nice and easy on the eyes.
Yeah,
It's
there was
really
that was
pretty.
the week I missed was 3, but the meeting with Cleo I did get.
It was the date was the 24th. So it was the week after that. It was the 24th.
So it's this one, right? The 5th, because it's the Cleo meeting, right? Oh no, I'll be the 7th, sorry.
That
So
one.
Cleo is the 6th, so we're looking for the 7th. Oh, maybe I didn't put it in here, but I definitely did it because I have meeting 7, so I thought I put it in the meetings, but if
Okay.
I can find it. I find it because it's in my YouTube channel too, and it's private, so you guys can't find it there. It's only found by a link, but I know meeting 7. I just don't remember where I put it because I definitely uploaded all of them. But I don't remember what the topic was. So
It was-
I'm gonna go to
Yeah, it was
Christina's
just
question.
okay.
While you're
Yeah,
looking for
there was a
that.
couple of questions here too. We had El Cariz had a couple of questions and Rosanna.
Oh,
Oh, the
okay.
penny problem. I don't even know what the heck that was about. Cleo penny problem. I almost wrote that. I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought we talked about it before mentioning, but I didn't. What happened when an invoice come over from Clio, there is like a penny adjustment that Clio
Mhm.
does, and that I don't know how to solve it. That's the
you
thing.
just have to write it down or increase like one or the other. You just have to
Just-
deal with it at time of payment. So
Okay, so and I
yeah.
delete it in the invoice, or I just adjust it in the invoice.
you
or-
just adjust it there, or
Okay.
yeah, or even on the
That's what-
deposit. Just adjust it on the deposit too, if that's when it comes up
Yeah.
for you. You can
Okay,
just do
that was my
yourself.
question because
Yeah,
I know
that's
it doesn't affect the trust account because the money comes out.
Well, I
Right.
find it silly sometimes that they
Yeah.
do this point blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's so
could you
stupid. I'm
just
sorry.
round the dang thing, please? But
Yeah.
whatever. So
But I did talk to one of the Clio rep, and they say they're working on this issue.
they are. I mean, it's not. They're not the only software that has this problem. There's a lot of softwares that I run into it, and I'm like, I'm not sweating a penny. It's too immaterial for me to think about. So I'm going to resolve you and move you. So there's Christina. You have
okay.
a client discovery call this morning. 2 lawyers. Each lawyer is
Oh.
a separate corp that have formed a partnership. Okay. 1 operating account, no trust. I realize that it would be determined based on partnership agreement. I will do a file review. How would you recommend this setup? Okay, so maybe you have to help me walk through. I think I'm missing a few pieces in the question. So
Okay,
will you
so
help?
what it is it's 2 partners. They each have their own side of the law, but they're each their own entity. So they're a corporation. They each are a corporation, and those legal entities, those corporations, have formed a partnership.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now in this particular case, it's pretty simple. They have no payroll, they have no trust, they have
Yeah.
1 operating or general account. So on the books, and I'll find this out when I do a file review, but I'm wondering, and I know this would depend on the partnership agreement that both the corporations have signed, depending on, what they need for their individual corp taxes. But in my mind, the way I think it should be set up is each partner obviously would be tracked separately. So they would be see, all expenses obviously would flow through 1 general. So
We call these umbrella companies is what we call them.
okay.
Yeah.
So would you
yeah.
track the expenses separately? Like, would you just completely separate them in 1 QBO file?
Based on the operating agreement, that umbrella company is going to have expenditures incurred, I presume, inside of that.
Right.
What is the agreement inside of that needs to be allocated? So if I'm partner A, partner B,
yeah,
and I'm earning, it's my file, and I earn 80%, my partner gets 5%, and so much percent lives inside the company, right, for other expenditures. That needs to be, so the trickiness of how that works, I put the onus back on the partners to give us the details of that, because for every dollar you've earned, how you're going to divide that out. You just have
So
to
what
give me the
what would
details.
happen in that case, though? I think that would be actually once it goes to the accountant, depending on the partnership agreement. So as far as, following it through, each partner would be responsible for their side of the law. So that would actually be segregated revenue wise per lawyer. So, they're the acting lawyer or whatever, they would get their revenue. The other person acting on their side of the law would get whatever, but expenses all flow through
Well,
the umbrella.
What's the point of the umbrella?
I think it's to share expenses, right? So there's two corps
Is that
under.
going to work on the tax rule? You can't you have an entity just on a shared expense side and no revenues?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I have that with a realtor right now. And right now my business partner on my other business I'm with, we're having a conversation about that.
So then I think it should
revenue.
Yeah, so then it should be, all revenues are going to go into the general, all expenses are going to come out of the general. So what I'm looking at on QBO is separating, I think, everything for each individual lawyer, right?
Separate EINs dictate separate files. So you need 3 separate files.
So 2 QBO files then.
2 or 3, because what I'm hearing is you have an entity in the middle, and you have the umbrella entity, and then you have the 2 side entities.
That's right.
Yeah. You need 3 files because those are separate. They'll have their own tax return.
That's right. They will.
Mm-hmm.
And then so will the umbrella as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I would be careful about wanting that to hold just expenses. That's not the point of an entity on a tax structure, I'm sure.
See, that's why I was thinking 1 QBO, 2 projects, if you will, 2 departments. Oh, my dog's going to start now, of course. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. But in the end, the end result is.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah. But I think in this scenario, everybody, the end result is it doesn't matter. It has a tax return tied to this EIN. So if we have no revenue on this EIN, can that be sustainable?
Sorry, I can't.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, and now I can't hear you either.
Okay.
That's just awesome. That's great.
Does everyone follow me on this logic? Like, it's a question. That's a very concerning point that I love how attorneys love to interpret it the way they want to. But yeah, that wouldn't make sense to, like, that would open you up. So so anyway,
El Carice had a question
yeah,
too.
Let's go for it.
Is she gonna unmute?
Yeah, I unmuted. I wanted to figure a best approach when the trust account is off.
Okay.
I've encountered some transfers that have no notation that says this was moved for client XXX and this was moved for, I asked for explanations, but essentially this attorney is, I guess, trying to get their stuff together. And it just, I don't know how to figure where's the best start when I see this type of activity.
Well, the ownership would really be on the attorney to, like, if the bar comes in and says, hey, what are these for? You're the nice person that gets to ask first, not the bar.
Okay.
Right? Like, you're the nice person that's doing the inquisitive homework for them. So you're just basically like, look, pretend I'm somebody from the state inquiring about this. What validation do you have for this money going in or money going out? That's all I'm asking. Like, it's very hard. I know it's a challenging spot to be in. But it also, I look at it too, like, you're asking me to touch something and you're not helping me. That doesn't work either. Like, I'm not putting my name on something that is really, like, I don't want to be complicit in something that's not right either. Not saying that that's what you're doing, but you know what I mean? Like, you're kind of like helping them. So I think the balance there is, like, maybe it's just the simple, I mean, when I did this big cleanup, the guy looked at me and he's like, "You're so much nicer than someone from the bar coming in here. I'm so glad I paid you what I paid you for that one." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, thank you. But anyways, so I think leading with, they know this is their rules. I mean, they understand that. It's maybe having to rephrase it in such a way that gets their attention or jars them enough to get you what you need. And you're not the bad person for asking. I mean, I'm sorry, this is exactly what is required of you in any state, period.
I guess I got concerned because it makes me feel like the trust will just be off.
Until it's resolved. It will be. I have literally had to sit down and go all the way back to 2013 till the company opened, and I had to have her answer to every single penny, dollar. I mean, we were penny offs on years, and she had to transfer that money in and out. But we had to do it to show diligence, to show that we did the work. And it didn't matter. She was like, "Well, can't I just group them?" No, you cannot. Do not do that. I want to see it follow. I want my document to follow what happens today with my date stamp on it. Okay. So yeah, but I feel for you because it is a tough spot to be in, for sure. So that's a good question though. So
yes, Jana, I will share with you her permissions. Vivian's her name for Bill.com, and I will definitely share that with you. And Ann, I already put I moved the meeting back up into the meeting side. It was under advanced client costs, which is what the topic was.
Yeah, that still wasn't the right one. It's the one from 224. It's not. I think that must have been the one you didn't record.
224. Yeah, I think there was one I did not capture.
Yeah, I wanted to see if you can maybe just stay for like a couple minutes after. I don't know if you guys are busy.
Yeah, I think we can. If you have a question that you wanted Sarah to repeat what she told you.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
And yes, I'll put the copy of the presentation up in the private space, and I'll stick it right with the topic, which is file review, but I'll try to remember to put it in meetings, which is why the meeting wasn't there.
Yeah. So yeah, do you want to go for it? And I'll try and remember what the heck I told you to. I'm sure I'll remember.
Yeah, it was actually very easy. I remember you told me and I was like, okay. And I was like, I'll watch the video later because I was like running. So can I share I can share my screen?
Absolutely. Do you want us to pause?
Oh yeah, let me shut the video off.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have that.